Hi, Chuck Hawley from West Marine, and today I'm talking to Amanda Neal and John Neal about sailboat instruments. One of the questions that they get asked a lot by prospective buyers is what kind of instruments and whether they're actually necessary to have if people are going cruising. So Amanda, tell me, if you only had one instrument on a boat, what would it be?
It would definitely be the wind speed. I think be able to reef by the numbers to know what your wind's blowing is just great.
Okay, so when you are sailing with students, will you watch the wind increase and then say, okay, it's such and such, we got to put in a first or second reef?
We have a laminated card at 18 knots, first reef goes in. At 23 knots, second reef goes in. So they are learning to reef to the wind speed, and you need to know exactly what that is.
You know, I chartered a catamaran about 6 months ago in the British Virgin Islands, and because it was a catamaran, a big heavy cruising cat, I wasn't tuned into angle of heel and when we needed to reef, and so they had a placard right over the companionway that said what the sail combination was for various wind speeds. So they agree with you.
Yeah, I think it's hard for new people to sailing, or if you're sailing your own boat, to know you're not stressing your autopilot, your boat, and keeping it comfortable.
So John, what about wind direction? Is that equally important?
It's at least as important, and it's so helpful, especially at night if you're offshore at night or coastwise at night, to be able to just look at an instrument and see the apparent wind angle. Instead of having to look up at the Windex at the top of the mast, which may or may not be very visible, when we have a student, if we say, just keep it on 130 degrees, that just is really graphic, really simple.
It's also a good way to avoid accidental jibes at night too.
It really, for deep downwind, it's very important.
Okay, so you are a former racer, perhaps not racing as much anymore. Do you use boat speed when you're on there for trimming and optimizing the boat?
I think in the ocean, once you get the boat set up, it trucks fairly well. So as far as trying to get the difference of surfing down a wave or coming up a wave and down, I think boat speed is just a number that you're trying to sail to, but not ascertaining a certain speed.
How about John, how about distance measurements, like having either a total log or a trip log?
Both. Usually they come together. The advantage of having the total log is, of course, you're putting the log entry every hour, hopefully, in the logbook and writing down the total mileage. We really, and traditionally, noon-to-noon runs have been really important on sailing ships and on race boats, and so every noon we plot our position on a paper chart while we're making an ocean passage, and then we write the number of how many miles we've done in that 24 hours and put a red circle around that so that when we're done with the passage we can pull the chart out and say, wow, look at that, we did 150, 170, 160, only 35 miles that day. It's just really graphic and easy to see.
Okay, are there any other functions that you use frequently or that you wish you had?
Well, you know, on our 2 boats ago, I had a sonar, a digital graph depth indicator.
Right,
that
right.
was really great to be able to see the contour. We don't have that on our current boat. We just have numbers, and so I kind of missed that.
But you do obviously have a depth sounder on the current boat.
Right.
And so when you get into coastal conditions, do you use that all the time, some of the time?
All the time. And we took a tip from a friend who's an officer in an oil tanker, and he says that on the oil tankers they have someone dedicated just to calling the depth when they're on soundings, because it's so critical. We do the same thing when we're doing sail training. It's very easy for everyone to get focused on the sails, on coming into a new port, taking pictures of dolphins, and forget about the depth. And we've run aground, or we've had students run the boat aground when that happened. And so if one person's just focused, and if their responsibility is every 30 seconds or 60 seconds calling out the depth, that's a really good safety issue.
Great. And finally, are these instruments tied into the rest of your electronics, or are they standalone instruments?
They're all tied together. They're all the same brand, and they all talk together well. And the advantage of that is that they all read out on the radar chart plotter as well. So we can call up the instruments, the information on one master.
Well, good advice. So if you're getting ready to go cruising, and for some reason your boat has not come with wind instruments or perhaps some of these other items, probably a good idea to check into it. Thanks very much for helping us here, and thank you for watching.